your host, Sean Lynn, in the pub for a Dram with Friends, where we talk about faith, family, food, and fun. Pull up a chair and I'll pour you a drink. Episode 48. We are quite excited to have Michael Chiasson join us in the pub. Listen how he reaches the young people of the Diocese of Calgary and around the world. I hope you are enjoying a Dram with Friends. Please like, subscribe, follow us on Heroic Men, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. Please continue to pray for our mission or go to godsquad.ca to donate. All whiskeys are purchased by myself for use in the pub. Thank you as we continue with our episode. Welcome to another episode of A Dram with Friends. We are very excited to welcome Michael Chiasson into the pub here today. You're the first official guest in season 2 to sit at this new setup, so thank you for coming and joining us.
Hey, you're welcome. It's an honor to be here.
And so Michael is a longtime friend of the Catholic Church here, well known in Calgary. For the friends in our pub that don't know who you are, who is Michael Chiasson?
That's always a loaded question. I did a little bit of homework on this podcast and that you're doing, and that's a big question, I think, for a lot of people. Like, who are you? And actually, I had a feeling you were going to ask that we don't really have any prep notes or anything like that. But when I think about that question, I automatically start kind of going back into my mind, and maybe some of the listeners have done this, where you try to think of the successful moments, the moments that you're like super proud of. And somehow that becomes a defining moments in our life. But when the honest answer for me is, I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son of God, and I'm honored by that family that I get to be a part of, not only from the scope of our faith, but also just within how we can somehow begin to live that out here and now, right? And it's not easy. And who am I? I'm a man that's hoping to give everything that I've been given as a gift and pour it out and hopefully make some kind of impact, not for my glory, not for my sake, but to see that person across the room that needs hope or just needs somebody to notice them, right? That's powerful stuff to me. And so who am I? My name is Michael, and I'm pretty messed up, and I got this t-shirt that says still under construction. And it's a good reminder for me that I'm not done yet.
Well, that's awesome, and thank you for sharing that. I know that's a message you share often with young people, and I thought I'd pour us a little Glenmorangie 14-year-old Quinton Rubin. This one was the heel or a gift from the Knights of Columbus, St. Peter's. They just had their men's night in, and so they had a little bit left over, and they donated it to the pub here. So nice. I want to give them a shout out and thank them for contributing to the show, and I hope you enjoy this. This is I think a nice Scotch whiskey from the Highlands.
Very nice. Thank you very much. And to the Knights. Cheers.
So you've spent the most of your adult career that I'm familiar with really trying to reach young people, doing retreats, talks, inspirational videos. I really like your 1 minute, 2 minute videos that you're releasing. Why is it that you feel that need to reach that audience?
Well, I think if I kind of rewind a little bit, we find ourselves responding. We react or we respond. I mean, that's what I've learned about life. And I mean, typically when we react to things and we're constantly reacting to things, that for the most part doesn't end up well for a lot of people. But learning how to respond well. And, you know, even as a kid, like if you would have told me when I was in high school that I would be traveling the world and being in front of high school and junior high students, I would have looked at you and been like, hey, you got the wrong person that you're talking to here. But when you kind of look at that as to why would I even think that, it's because I didn't see myself as someone that was worthy or able or capable, because I was defined by my circumstance. I was defined by the story that I was living in that moment. And there's something to take away from that, because the moments that we're up against right now, and this is a hard time for a lot of people, young people, families, organizations, the church, we're being challenged to the core. But we got to remember something, that we're also passing through that. Right. And so there's lessons to be able to kind of hold on to in that moment, especially as men, especially as moms and dads and fathers and sons and daughters and the whole story. And we're passing through these moments. And so, you know, as I've been doing this now for 25 years, this is crazy to me. It's like I'm starting to, am I getting old? I don't know. But my passion is still there. My heart's literally the vehicle right now parked outside Lynn's pub, your pub, is loaded with sound equipment for an event that we're doing for 350 grade 10 students tomorrow. And I'm just as fired up today as I was when I started it. Because for me, it's not about showing people what you can do. It's not about, you know, our approach is a little bit different even with the people that we speak to. It's not to come at you to tell you, you know, everything that we know and everything we can memorize and try to get you to believe. No, they got to see the authenticity. And when I realized that the people that we were speaking to, especially in schools, they had so many different backgrounds. They had so many different belief systems, worldviews. And so how do you find a platform that you can stand on, number one, that they can see your authenticity and they can trust you and say, there's something about that. And to let them know that we see them where they are, but where you are is not necessarily where you're going to be tomorrow. The hope is that tomorrow you're going to become better than you were today. And if that's the truth, and that's possible, then what are the things we should probably talk about, that we should probably bring into our conversation and into our wrestling of belief and challenging that, right? I mean, there's certain things we can't even, if you even bring it up, it's like you're going to get crucified, right? And it's like, oh, okay, so navigating that right now is a challenge. But my heart and why we've been doing this for so long, we started a registered charity 11 years ago here in Canada. I'm originally from Texas. But when we started that charity, that was the hope, is to inspire the world one student at a time. And that no student ever feel, this is where the heartbreak for me happens, is that no student ever feel that their life is worth giving up.
Amen to that. And as you know, I've worked a lot with youth at risk through my job, and God Squad is getting ready for its 25th annual men's conference in March.
Congratulations.
So we've been on the ground here about the same amount of time. And I've got a lot more gray hair, so why is that? Or
I think there's something to be said that is gray hair and wisdom. I think there's something alongside. That's why I'm sitting with you right now, because I want you to give me some of that wisdom as well.
Well, and you talk about that authenticity and working with young people. They don't really care as much about what you say, it's what you do. Like, they want to see you in action, and that's quite often how I would evangelize, just being present, being connected to them, building that relationship. And then they ask, what makes you tick? Like, why do you do what you do?
Right.
Like, why are you making chili for 250 people?
There's a curiosity there.
Yeah.
And I think everybody wants to rally around something that is bigger than themselves, right? This is not about you. I remember I was speaking at a youth conference one time, and this courageous young man stood up, and he was going through a tough time, and he had some friends there, and he had shared some things, and I looked at him after. I said, when you share this next part, this is not about you. This is about so much more than you. Like what you went through, what you had to experience, and the pain and the suffering and the difficulty through that. Whatever that looks like to maybe somebody watching as well. Maybe it's their kid, maybe it's their marriage, maybe it's their business, whatever it is. That the pain that no one else knows. That no one else knows. Once you pass through that, like we talked about, we're going to start to see things that make you kind of look back and say, whoa, there was something more in that story than I ever acknowledged. And for us to be able to bring the story of faith into that, it's like, yeah, but I can't explain it. Yeah, but it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. Well, come on, it doesn't. Of course, it's scandalous. The fact that grace is so amazing that we've all heard that song at some point, right? Yep. It's so amazing. But yet, when it comes to us, and I think that's what my hope for even in our conversation today, is that we spend the most time with us. Are we okay with us? Do we like spending time with us? Right? And
that's a good question.
Big time.
Well, especially given what's gone on in the last year, and that's where maybe even my struggle's been is what is my duty as this good Catholic husband, father, leader? What is my duty? What is God asking me to do? And just trying to figure that out. Where's that line? What am I being called to? And that's where, like, I've fallen in love with the Bible in a year with Father Mike Schmitz.
Right.
And when you were talking, and just the other day, Jeff was talking, giving the overview on the Maccabean revolt and everything else, and just how these people were hanging on in exile and everything, that the loss of faith would be easy because you don't see a way out, but Jesus is coming. It's just about to break through, right?
Right.
And those, so sometimes it is hard to see.
But I will throw in there, I think the greatest thing that you can do, and the greatest thing that I can do, is to be authentically you.
Yeah.
That God did not make you to be a duplicate, a copycat, or to be someone else. And we can look at people, and I think when I go back to the students that we talk to, I mean, they're just looking for people that are going to walk what they're talking about, right? The authenticity of that. That is the inspiration to say, hey, it's possible for me too, right? There's nobody else on the planet that's going to be a better Sean Lynn than Sean Lynn. There's nobody else on the planet that's going to be a better Michael Chiasson than Michael Chiasson. And not that that's meant to sound prideful or arrogant or anything like that, but there is something uniquely given to each of us in the body to be able to provide and to meet the needs, to become an answered prayer. I mean, how cool is that the gifts and talents that we have right now, right here, through our mind, through creativity, through the ability to listen, through the ability to respond. Heck, if you were, honestly, you're anybody watching this, just stop for a second and think about one person in your group of people. One person that comes to your mind. Whoever that is, send them a message. Send them a message. You just did something that could be so life-giving and so helpful that we never know. And guess what? We don't even want credit for it.
No.
Right? But to be authentically you is yourself, man, fully alive, is the best way that we can honor the God who gave us this life, the 1 in 400 trillion chance, they say, of us existing here. Chance? Come on. No, it's not a chance. But yet when you look at the numbers alone, it's miraculous. And I heard something, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow to the young people. We're going to look at life either as nothing is a miracle or that everything's a miracle. What side do you want to be on?
Yeah, and that's where, as you know, we ride motorcycles and just...
Let me clarify. You
okay.
you ride motors. Yeah.
You dream about it.
Well, no, listen. There's a reason, though. I gotta throw this in here. When I was a kid, I had a buddy of mine lived down the street. He rode little dirt bikes. He was like competition dirt bikes. And he tells me, he says, Michael, just get on the dirt bike. And I'm like, I don't know how to go slow. Like if I'm gonna do something, we're all in everything that we got. And so he's like, just barely push the throttle. And I pushed the throttle. I went straight up a tree and back down. Never again have I got on one of those bikes.
And that's why you're uniquely Michael Chiasson.
Thank you.
And God is calling us to all different things. And I remind my children and the children that I'm dealing with in the schools that they're made in the image and likeness of God.
Right.
And that's where I've challenged people, and especially churches and parishes out there. I tell children that God loves them. He has an amazing plan for them. And he wants them in his church and welcomes them. Now, what church do I send them to? And who are you in that parish? And the men at the conferences, I quite often will challenge them to look that young man in the eye that you think is a punk down, because you talk about their stories.
Right.
And if people even had an inkling of some of the stories that these kids live in, they would be going up and hugging them and saying, what can I do to help you?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Big time.
Instead of that punk down the street, right? That causes me nothing but grief. If he's looked on with love and compassion, I'm not saying do unsafe things like invite gangs into your house for supper, but you know what I mean. Do what God is calling you to in that moment. Recognize the face of Christ in that person, which in my line of work sometimes is extremely difficult to do.
I bet.
But I constantly have to remind myself that the homeless, the drunk, the jerk that I have to arrest for being a jerk, trying to see the face of Christ in that person and understanding where they're coming from. And yeah, do what you're comfortable with, but do something. Like you say, reach out to that one person.
Big time. And I think there's in our data that we're receiving. So one of the unique things about our organization is we get the students to write us letters. And they tell us, we preface it by a statement that says things I wish my parents knew, ... And then we just give them the opportunity. And we didn't know that this was going to be as successful as it was. But, over 4,000 letters and counting, handwritten from junior and high school students. You get a pretty good view of what life is like behind the scenes. It's no different than some of those wannabe golfers out there that, they can look the part, right? They can look the part. And then they get on that first tee box and they swing the club and you're like, yeah, you're not the part. And then I also look in our churches sometimes. It's like, man, you sure look the part. But then are you actually living it out outside of Sunday, right? Every day. And I think there's 4 things that we're noticing that every student, and I'll say student because sometimes when I say all of us, we want to kind of go like this, but maybe people can relate. But there's 4 things that I'm really noticing in this generation, and I think for many of us as well, is to be seen, to be heard, to be noticed, and to be loved. To be seen, to be heard, to be noticed, and to be loved. And there's a big difference in those words. They might sound similar, and they're not just meant to be 4 little things for us to, just sound good together. But they're reaching out. Everybody's reaching out in some way, right? I remember a couple of years ago, I wrote a talk called "Bully, Bullied, Broken." Bully, bullied, broken. Right? So this person bullies somebody, and then that person that got bullied all of a sudden starts bullying somebody else, and then we look at the story of those 2 people and the people they've affected. Look, now we're broken. What do we do about that?
Yeah.
Right? And it's one of those things that my hand is powerful. My hand can do some good things. My hand can create damage. But one of the greatest things I can do is reach my hand out to you to say, hey, what can I do to help? Like you asked, right? What can I do right now? How can I serve you? A lot of people don't even know how to answer that question. A lot of us that are a bit more older in life, it's like, if someone came to help you, would you receive the help? And little do we know, we've been praying for God to do something or to show us or to, answer a prayer. And God's brought this person into your life and you're like, no, it's okay. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm fine. Well, we look back, well, how come God's not answering my prayer? Well, is he not answering your prayer or is he? Right? And this is such a unique opportunity, especially now where the rhythm of what we have known in our everyday life for so many years in our families, in our just weekly rhythm has been so disrupted. It's been so disrupted through this pandemic. And I think the gift that it's done for us is it's revealed a lot of things. It's helped us to actually hit the pause button and say, hey, I've been asking God for some time to focus on X or to do this or to write that book or to, work on the relationship, whatever that is. So now we've had some time to, how are we doing with that? Right?
Yeah.
And this is, this is an exciting moment I think should be an exciting moment for all of us. Is it hard? Of course it is. But anything worth something is going to cost us something, right? And there's no greater opportunity right now, right here. Someone needs to hear this. Maybe it's just me that needs to hear this, but to be able to start with the priority. Start with the priority. Right here. Right here. And then what's the next priority? My wife, my kids. And then from there, where does it go?
Well, and I've used that premise many times talking to especially young people. Love thy neighbor as thyself. That denotes a self-love. And that's a lot of us struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
And the wisdom my dad gave me growing up is you have to look in the mirror every morning when you shave, and you have to like the guy that looks back. And that's something, yes, I've got a beard now after 32 years of policing, but I still have to trim. And just that wisdom of taking care of yourself, but also that love flows through and out. And that's where Jesus, by going and receiving body, blood, soul, and divinity, lives within us and allows us and gives us the graces to have that flow out to our wife, our kids, our neighbors. And those are things that we can practice every day. And as I tell the young people, there's an old Bob Carlyle song. The saints are the sinners that fall down and get back up again. And that's
good.
That's what we aim for, right? We all fall short. We're gonna fall short. But what do you do? And I tell young people, I don't always feel in love with my wife, especially when she's reminding me of my shortcomings. But I wake up every day and I choose to love her. I choose what I do, and I choose to love my wife and my children each and every day. And we just have to remember that and not let life get away on us.
And I like how you brought that. I mean, because sometimes when we talk about, living this life the way that God intended or the way that we've been given the opportunity to live it, sometimes it seems so impossible, right? Especially when we start looking at other families or other people or, what they're doing or what they have or in that whole comparison trap, right? You have no idea what's going on behind the scenes there. And there was a deacon in Ontario that I've had the privilege to know for many years. He's been a great blessing to my life and my family. And he's just a champion working with young people. And he would ask these people, he goes, how many of you here want to be happy? And of course, everybody raised their hands. I want to be happy. But how do you how are you, joy? If you're not joyful in what you're doing, then are you miserable? And tell your face, put a smile on your face, find something to smile about. But he said something pretty remarkable that I've never forgotten. I've talked about it many times, even on our podcast, different things. As I said, what he said is that if you want to be happy, first, you have to like yourself. And in order to like yourself, and here was the key, You got to do the things that make you proud. You got to do the things that make you proud. And all of a sudden it starts to kind of zoom in a little bit on the micro way that I can take this next step, this next decision, this next conversation, and invite the Holy Spirit to kind of fill me up and to lead me and to help me, or to shut my mouth when I need to shut my mouth, or to open my mouth when I need to open my mouth, right? And to honor and to serve and to love the people around me. But at the end of the day, it's seeing the need and responding to the need, but also being mindful that sometimes there's a need that I have, especially those that are constantly on the giving side of things. And it's heartbreaking. Even today, we had a situation where a young man that we knew, beautiful family, and his funeral was today.
Oh,
and it was,
sorry to hear that.
you know, it's heartbreaking, and it should be heartbreaking. And it doesn't, that's somebody I don't know. Well, listen, the power of the gift of community, the power of the gift of your family. When I talk to parents, I tell them, you're the greatest influence in your kid's life, hands down. Period. Full stop. Drop the mic. We can finish this conversation right here and right now. And I was challenged by this, and I don't even know why we're going here, but whatever, we'll share it anyways. But someone had asked me at one point in my life, my family life wasn't the best. My dad he raised me as a single father. He was phenomenal. Mass on Sunday, that's what we had to do. I didn't understand it, but I'm grateful that we had that rhythm in our life. It was actually a foundation that we still continue to this day, right? So never underestimate the power of that. But my mom had some, she had a hard life, difficult life, a lot of hard things that she went through. And, when she was no longer in the story of my life for many years, I was asked, like, do you love your mom? And I don't know if you've ever had a question that was pointed at you where you just didn't want to pretend anymore. You didn't want to hide. You were kind of just done. Like, I'm done saying I'm good, I'm fine. I'm done saying everything's just great, amazing. No, it is. But that particular area is not. And I looked and I said, no. This person popped back at me and he says, well, if I can prove to you that you do, would you continue to listen to what I have to say? Sure. Give it your best shot. You know what he told me, Sean? He said, if you didn't love your mom, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt. I said, I got it. We're imperfect. But we serve a God that's perfect.
Amen.
And I think that's where the hope lies for many of us. And I think maybe over the past little while, we've just had what would seem like a disconnect from hope. And we need to get it back.
Amen to that.
We need to get it back, and we need to share that. And it's not to share it because we think we're better than anybody. It's to share it because it's a story that needs to be told. And so if I go back to what we talked about earlier, of being authentically you, just share that. That's going to inspire somebody to say, hey, if you can do that, maybe I can do that. And if you can, what did C.S. Lewis say? He goes, wait, what? You too? I thought I was the only one. That's pretty powerful to me, right? Like, that's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, and we are not alone. And
right.
And bringing that joy, that hope to people is a daily mission. And I hope that we can continue fulfilling that mission. And one of the ways I like to do it, as you know, with the barbecue outreach and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we talk about faith, food, family, fun. So do you have a dish that brings joy to your kids when dad makes it, or
I got a dish that brings joy to me.
oh, what's that?
It's Mr. B's barbecue shrimp from New Orleans.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Food is always amazing, and I love even in our family. I love to cook and I love to create, and so does our kids love to eat. But it's about the ingredients, right? The better the ingredients, the better the food, right? But just like in life, and that's why I like how you bring that into the story, because sometimes the ingredients, if they're bad, you got to get rid of that.
It's not going to help the taste.
It's not going to help the taste, and bring it back to us. What are the ingredients that we've put in our daily life every day, and whether it be in our, do we have a prayer time? Do we have a rhythm that works for us every day? Those ingredients, and we need to add some spice. I love spice. We need to add some spice to that. We need to add some flavor to that. We need to add some whatever to that, just to enhance it, to bring it out, to shock me back into life, into this moment, right? And there's nothing better that, when I'm sitting around our dinner table with our family, and my wife takes a bite of the food, or Hannah, or my son Simon, and even myself, we take a bite, and you just see this. You nailed it. And I'm like, wow, that's a moment that we need to have more of.
Amen.
Like around the table, once a week, minimum once a week.
Oh,
if not more, but like, come on, like this is
one of the best crime prevention tools there is, and people don't realize.
Come on.
One of the best. It was the U.S. Drug Administration. I don't know if it's still there, but this was a number of years ago. Those families that ate at least one meal together 5 times a week greatly reduced the risk of kids getting involved in illicit drugs.
Really?
Yeah, and just creating that atmosphere for your kids to talk, enjoy, be present to each other. And it doesn't take a lot. Like, we're talking, sometimes dinner lasts 15 minutes, right? Depends what you're preparing. But like, we just finished Thanksgiving dinner, and this past weekend, Canada, we do it a little earlier. But the length of time and the conversation and my parents went away just elated to be part of the family and just to enjoy that big turkey and so creating those moments goes a long way.
And sometimes this I think we get afraid of maybe that, of like, what am I going to say? What are we going to talk about? We need to have a plan. We need to have like a structure of how this is going to go. Sometimes just letting it be as it's going to be is just a great moment. It's a safe space. It's home base, right? Like, what's the goal of baseball is to get everybody home. So it's home base when we have those moments. And sometimes the silence is okay. Let's just call that, if we want to get spiritual about it, let's call it a sacred silence. And in that moment, ask a question. And you might get the I'm good, I'm fine, right? But overall, it's the presence is sometimes greater than any present you can buy for somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the other segments that I ask is, as you know, many of the young men are struggling with what even a man is. What advice do you give your 18-year-old self?
Wow. Whoa, that's a loaded question. What would I tell my 18-year-old self? I think it would have a lot to do with confidence. I think knowing that who I am doesn't have to be defined by what I do. Who I am does not have to be defined by what I do, but what I do will show others who I am. And that's the challenging part. And so I think for my 18-year-old self, I would find myself different people around different groups. I had almost like different, I could be this way around this group of people, this way around this group of people, and that way around that group of people. And I took out of that what was so, fun or, entertaining or whatever else that might be. But the challenge that I found is that I was always what they wanted me to be. And I would sacrifice and settle on the convictions that I knew were to be true for me. I thank God, back to the amazing grace that we talk about, though, is that God's grace is real. God's grace is there. Well, I don't see it. Well, that's the challenge, right?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so I think I would, if I could go back, I've looked at the mentors in my life and the people in my life. I'd tell them how grateful I was for them, to speak the good things into it. Because that's the thing about a tribe. That's the thing about a village. That's the thing about community, is that I'm not perfect, right? There's other people that can teach my son certain things that I won't be able to teach him as well as they could. But they are a part of our tribe. And so why would I not expose that opportunity for my son and my daughter and even my wife and I to that community, to be able to build each other up that way? But going back to your question of my 18-year-old self, God didn't make a mistake. That God gave you something. And as hard as it was, God will use that mess to become a great message. And so hopefully I'm going to keep living that out and doing something about it.
Awesome. So I talked about the motorcycle ride earlier. Jeff Cavins, in his Activated Disciple, he talks about riding with your posse. So who are your go-to saints? Who are the guys that are with, or ladies that are with you every day?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, when I came to Canada, I went to a Bible school, and I knew I grew up in the church, but I didn't know a lot about it. Right, I didn't know a lot about it, and typically when you are new to the story being unfolded before you, it's just like this richness and this depth and this like incredible, like, this is awesome. And I remember sitting in the chapel. I'll never forget this. I don't read. I can't focus long enough to like sit down and read a book. So that was my excuse for a long time. And then they came out with this thing called Audible. And so now you can actually listen to books, and that helps guys like me be able to do that. And there's other apps you can do that with as well. But this one particular book, I was sitting in the chapel at this Bible school. I pick it up and I start reading it. And I'm like flying through it. It was about St. Francis. And I'm reading about St. Francis. I'm getting really inspired by him. And I'm like, it was the cross in one hand and the Bible in the other hand. It was the what to do and the how to do it. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty powerful. What to do and the how to do it. And the cross, I'm like, oh, this is going to be painful. But I finished that book. I remember, Sean, I got to puff my chest out. I'm like, I actually read a book today. This is amazing. And I had the opportunity to speak for the school the next day, because we had time that everybody could share something. And I get up and I share this about this book that I read, because I was pretty proud that I read a book. And somebody asked me, well, tell me the name of the book and everything. I look at the back and I just stop and I was like, I can't go any, I don't even want to tell you, because it says, for more children's books on lives of the saints, go here. I'm like, okay. But you know what? It's what I needed to hear. And, from that moment, St. Francis was someone that always, it inspired me. Obviously the saints that, are, really for the youth as well. Very powerful to me, especially for the intercession, especially with what we do. But that was probably the first most remarkable and kind of awakening moment that I was inspired by, and standing on the shoulders of the giants of our faith. Like, how powerful is that, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, and St. Francis in my family has a place of elevation. My dad is very close to him, and I went to high school at St. Francis. I work at St. Francis, so I get to use them lots.
That's my son's middle name.
There you go. So I want to thank you so much for coming to the pub today, for being our guinea pig with this new setup. And I don't know if you know, but the word whiskey comes from a Gaelic term called Ishkabaha, which means water of life. And my prayer is that you continue to lead many to the true water of life.
Oh, man. Thank you very much.
And I do have a little gift here for being the first guinea pig in the pub. It's the Year of St. Joseph ball cap.
Oh, that's amazing.
God Squad. So
let me put that right there so the people can see. And thank you for listening, and thank you for having me a part of this conversation. It's powerful, and you're doing a great work. I'm inspired by you.
We're going to have you back in the near future. Thanks, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of A Dram with Friends. Like and subscribe. Go to all podcast platforms to look for it on podcast, or go to godsquad.ca to support our mission.